Selves and our growth edges. Radical self-acceptance. When I was 12 years old, I had my first thorough natal chart reading. My father had just moved across the country to Toronto with my second stepmother, a woman I had grown up with. I had spent many weekends with her and her two children. Our childhoods were parallel. Our parents had partied, worked, and teetered on the brink of madness together. We were witnesses to some of each other's most harrowing moments, and we had survived. The fact that my father and their mother fled the small town we grew up in meant that they were ready to leave behind at least some of the violence, drugs, and self-destruction we had all been so embroiled in. The trauma bonds between us all were solid. And for a moment, it seemed like together we might be able to heal the collective heartbreak of the past decade. We were a ragtag bunch, shell-shocked, from a small town, a family of misfits looking for another chance at life in the big city. My new step-grandmother, Anita, was a Reiki master. Besides being the most captivating, witchy, spiritual, tell-it-like-it-is healer woman I had ever met, she had a collection of friends who were equally talented in the healing arts and as weird as she was. Psychics, astrologers, past life explorers, artists, and the like surrounded her and me when I got to spend time in Toronto. All the people that I met through her seemed to be dedicated to living less harmful lives. They spent their time developing their healing practices, and knowing them gave me a glimpse of another way of being. Shortly after the move, Anita gifted the family with a reading from Tina Katola, an astrologer she knew and had worked with. Tina lived in a small town just outside the city, in a normal-looking house, in a subdued suburban subdivision. Inside, the world she constructed for me was anything but. As soon as she started describing each one of us, I was mesmerized. I was hearing this symbolic language for the first time, but I felt like I had always known it. Explaining the intricacies of our charts with great skill and humor, she helped me to understand how and why we were each coping with the situation we were in differently, and how we would each cope with life in general. The distinctions that she was able to make between us helped me understand myself in relation to everyone else, which is always useful, but in a new family unit is essential. She had written a book, The New Astrology, which my father bought for me. It became my Bible. As a child in search of any kind of wisdom and guidance, astrology became my immediate, full-blown obsession. But it would be decades before I finally accepted it as my path. I am a late bloomer, like a late bloomer. Astrologers warned me that with a Saturn placement such as mine, it might be the case. But it's hard to understand what that might actually mean when you hear it at a young age. I had tons of drive, but the only place I knew to put it was therapy, Reiki workshops with Anita, spiritual ritual, self-help books, affirmations, meditations, episodes of Oprah, and astrology. I spent my 20s largely in a healing incubator. To support myself, I did community work, astrology readings, Reiki sessions, a lot of waitressing, bartending, cleaning, temping, and whatever else would pay the bills. Though I knew giving astrology readings was a way to make money, I didn't feel emotionally, psychologically, or structurally strong enough to do so. Exclusively doing readings was also never quite enough for me. Though it is an honor to read people's charts, I've always known that I wanted a larger outlet than only one-to-one work. Before social media, however, those outlets were open to only a select few. My business, as it exists today, wasn't an option when I was 20. Sometimes we are late bloomers because the world needs to catch up to us. The truth is that I felt